A white sprinter breaking 10 seconds in the 100 meters is one of the rarest sights in track and field. It barely happens once every few years. Just 2 months ago, Sam Blaskowski became the fastest white man alive. But in rain-soaked Glasgow, a 22-year-old Australian tore that record apart. Let's rewind for a second, because this rivalry only makes sense once you understand how rare this feat actually is. Since sprinting became a global sport, it has been almost impossible for a white athlete to reach the very top of the 100 meters. Olympic finals and World Championship finals regularly go by without a single white finalist, and cracking the world's top 10 rankings in any given year is even harder, with entire seasons passing where nobody even comes close. The closest anyone came in over a decade was France's Christophe Lemaitre, who stunned the sport in 2011 with a legendary run of 9.92 at the French Championships in Albi. Even that performance only placed him 9th on the world list that season, which shows just how brutal the competition at the very top really is. Lemaitre still holds a remarkable record of his own. He broke 10 seconds 7 separate times, 3 in 2010 and 4 in 2011, and for 13 years his 9.92 stood as the fastest 100 meters ever run by a white sprinter. A few others managed to sneak under the barrier along the way. Italy's Filippo Tortu became his country's first sub-10 sprinter with a 9.99 back in 2018. America's Matthew Bowling, once a viral high school sensation, clocked a legal 9.98, and Iowa sprinter Kalen Walker joined the club with a 9.94 in 2025. Even Australia's own Lachlan Kennedy had already been knocking on the door before this year, dipping to 9.96 twice at his national championships. But none of them ever got close to Lemaitre's mark, and heading into 2026, few people inside the sport expected anyone to touch that 13-year-old record anytime soon. Then came Sam Blaskowski. Nobody outside of Division III track circles had heard his name before this year. Blaskowski spent his college career at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, a small program far from the spotlight of Division I sprinting, where he still managed to rack up 11 individual national titles and 2 national records along the way. After graduating, he spent his offseason working at a small regional airport in Wisconsin just to save enough money to move to Florida and chase sprinting full-time. At the Music City Track Carnival in Nashville, Tennessee, in late May, he lined up with a personal best of just 10.05. He left with a 9.89. That single race sliced 16/100ths of a second off his previous best and shattered Lemaitre's 13-year-old record in one afternoon. Training under sprint coach Dennis Mitchell's Star Athletics group in Florida, Blaskowski had quietly become the fastest white man ever to run the 100 meters. For a couple of months, it looked like his name would sit at the top of that list for years to come. But if you thought that record was safe, you'd be wrong, because at this year's Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland, one of the most stacked 100-meter fields in years was about to run through the rain and rewrite the history books. The men's 100 meters at Scotstoun Stadium did not look promising for fast times. Rain fell for most of the event, soaking the track and testing every sprinter's grip out of the blocks. Yet in the semifinals, Cameroon's Emmanuel Esame clocked a stunning 9.89, a personal best that matched Blaskowski's mark exactly and quietly put him on a collision course with sprinting history. Right behind him was Australia's Lachlan Kennedy, who ran 9.94 to book his spot in the final, a brand new personal best for the 22-year-old and a full 2/100ths quicker than his previous mark from earlier in the year. Kennedy had actually missed most of the second half of 2025 recovering from hamstring surgery, only returning to competitive racing in February at the Hobart Track Classic. Just months removed from injury, he was suddenly the second fastest man in the field heading into the final. Nobody in that soaked stadium expected what was coming next. When the final arrived, the rain was still falling, but the sprinters ran like the conditions barely mattered. Esame and Kennedy shot out of their blocks and traded the lead down the home straight, with Nigeria's Kanyan Sola Ajayi and South Africa's Gift Leotlela right on their heels the entire way. Over the closing meters, Esame found another gear and crossed the line first in 9.83, a new Commonwealth Games record that broke Ato Boldon's 28-year-old mark from Kuala Lumpur. Esme, who only took up the sport 8 years ago at the age of 24, said afterward that he was genuinely surprised by his own time. Kennedy came through just behind him in 9.85, smashing Patrick Johnson's 23-year-old Australian record and claiming Australia's first-ever podium finish. Ajayi took bronze in 9.90, giving Nigeria its first medal in this race in 2 decades, while Leotlela missed the podium by just 1/100th of a second in 9.91. 4 men broke 10 seconds in the pouring rain, and somewhere in the middle of that historic race, Lachlan Kennedy had just become the fastest white sprinter who ever lived. Kennedy's 9.85 beat Blaskowski's mark by 0.04 of a second, and it did far more than just settle an unofficial title. The time places him tied for 5th in the world for 2026 and tied for 31st on the all-time global list. What makes it even more remarkable is that Kennedy lives with type 1 diabetes and wears a continuous glucose monitor during competition, managing his blood sugar levels in real time while chasing down some of the fastest sprinters on the planet. This was also his second personal best of the day, having already dropped his mark to 9.94 in the semifinal just hours earlier. Counting his 2 clockings of 9.96 at the Australian Championships earlier this year, Kennedy has now broken 10 seconds 4 times before Glasgow, and this made it 5. Lemaitre's total of 7 sub-10 clockings is still out of reach for now, but given Kennedy's age and his current form, closing that gap looks like only a matter of time. This breakthrough has been a long time coming for Kennedy, who has spent the past few years building a resume most sprinters twice his age would envy. Born in Brisbane, he made his first major mark on the sport as part of Australia's 4x100-meter relay team at the 2024 Olympic Games, helping set an Oceania record in the heats before the squad was eliminated. He already holds a world indoor silver medal from the 60 meters at the 2025 World Championships in Nanjing, China, a result that made him one of the most talked about young sprinters on the entire circuit. Earlier this season at the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, Kennedy ran a solid race but still finished 6th in 10.09. That has been the pattern for much of his career. Kennedy typically gets out fast and holds his own through the opening half of the race, only to lose ground late to sprinters with bigger top-end speed. But in Glasgow, under the worst possible conditions, he held that form all the way to the line against some of the best sprinters alive. Kennedy is only 22 years old, and he is already the fastest white man to ever run the 100 meters. An Australian record holder. Just months removed from hamstring surgery, he has gone from fighting his way back onto the track to standing on a global podium against some of the deepest sprint fields in the world. As of right now, 9.85 stands as one of the standout performances of the entire 2026 season. And if Kennedy keeps trending in this direction, a genuine shot at global hardware might not be far behind. That is where we will leave things for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, stick around, because track and field is only getting faster from here.